Hello, good evening. I am Martha Lane Fox, the very, very honoured Chair of Judges for 2020. I know I can't see you all, but I think I can feel you all because I've seen the chat on the webinar and I've seen the excitement on social media and I feel it in my heart how much people are looking forward to tonight's announcement. I don't think that Kate and her founders 25 years ago could possibly have imagined that 25 years later, women's writing would have such an incredible resonance. Who could have forecasted that 2020 was going to be the year that it has been? From every angle, women's writing and reading have become at the forefront of our human experience. I have been so honoured to chair the judges this year. Yes, it's been a bit tricky, even for someone who loves technology like me, but for two major reasons, I couldn't be more proud that I've had the chance with my fellow judges to contribute to this incredible prize. Firstly, reading has quite literally, I know, saved people from their horrible local experiences over the last few months. For me, it's been this amazing prize, and then having read 70 novels, to be honest, it was been reading poems, which I could just about manage in chunks. But for others, I know people have found just that fabulous escape or that very important reaffirmation of things that you thought and felt as the most profound human experiences. What an incredible set of times we are living through. But also, it won't have escaped anybody that women have felt the burden of this pandemic more than most, and particularly women from minority groups. It would be hard to have lived through 2020 without having thought very hard about your own privilege and your own position in the world. And that's why it's more important than ever that women's writing is shown to be as diverse and wonderful as it is, and why we were so proud as judges to have such a diverse range of voices and talent on our shortlist. When it came to the final judging meeting, I have to say I was a bit nervous. We'd had to do our long list to shortlist judging meeting on Zoom. And I think my fellow judges won't mind if I tell you that it was tricky. It was hard to go through those fabulous books to get to 6 and do it all without being able to stand up, give each other a hug, have a moment, regroup. But you know what? I needn't have worried, because actually every single one of those books could have been a winner. And that took a massive amount of pressure off us. We all loved different books in different ways, but we all knew that any one of those books would have stood up to the test of time. And what an incredible journey that has been. But the winner is one that we could all quite unanimously and very clearly get behind as something that stood out so beautifully and remarkably for all of us and for this moment in time. So, before we reveal the 2020 Women's Prize for Fiction winner, why don't you see if my fellow judges enjoyed the books as much as I did? Bernardine Evaristo, Girl, Woman, Other. Bernardine's book is beautiful. It's a portrait of modern Britain.
1,000 Ships, a classic tale, but told with a modern twist through the lens of women.
Dominicana is a wonderful, beautiful, exquisite novel about a young woman from the Dominican Republic getting married and moving to New York in the 1960s.
The Mirror in the Light is the supremely confident, groundbreaking conclusion to a story begun in Wolf Hall, charting the extraordinary rise and bloody fall of Thomas Cromwell.
Hamlet is the heart-stopping family story behind Shakespeare's most famous play.
Weather is a brilliant, heartbreaking and hilarious book about a woman who is just living her daily life while fearing that the world might end.
I wish I was able to see all your faces right now as the anticipation, I'm sure, is building. I know my heart is fluttering a little bit, and I bet those 6 authors are also sitting slightly on the edge of their chairs, even if they're pretending to be a bit nonchalant. We can see you. Anyway, without further ado, this is the moment you've all been waiting for. Hold on to the edge of your laptops. We're about to announce the 25th Women's Prize for Fiction winner for 2020. And the winner is Maggie O'Farrell for Hamnet. I'm to give you the extremely happy-making news for me that you are the winner of the 25th Women's Prize for Fiction.
No!
Yes,
oh
it's true.
That's just amazing. Gosh, and especially because the shortlist was so extraordinary. It never occurred to me, actually. Because it's such, those 5 books are so amazing.
It was a tough process to get from longlist to shortlist, and then everyone had real deep loves for so many of those books, but when it came to your book, there was no question that it should be the winner. So please know that we all loved all the books, but that was an outstanding novel, and it moved everybody so deeply.
I'm so grateful to all of you. It's just an amazing feeling that, all the judges I know are really women who I really respect and whose opinions I really respect. So that means a huge amount to me.
What now? What happens when you win a prize? I guess will it make a difference?
I don't know.
How are you going to celebrate?
I don't know how I'm going to celebrate. That's really strange. I feel like I want to run out into the garden and howl at the moon.
Dad would do that. Definitely do that. Definitely.
Maybe I will. I'm going to apologise to all the residents of Edinburgh. There are no wolves. It's just me.
Hello, everyone. I'm Paula Hawkins. I'm one of the judges on the Women's Prize, and I'm coming to you live from Edinburgh. And I'm here with Maggie O'Farrell, who is the winner of the 2020 Women's Prize for Fiction. Congratulations, Maggie.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Paula, and thank you so much to the Women's Prize. Just looking through those writers and books, that roster of 25 years of winners, I see so many writers and so many books that have sustained and inspired me throughout my whole writing career. So I'm just so moved and honoured, and still actually very shocked to be holding this amazing Bessie statue. So I just wanted to say a huge thank you to all the judges and everyone involved with the Women's Prize. It is just my name on the cover of this book, but there are a whole host of people who have helped me bring it into being, and I could not have done it without them. I'm incredibly lucky to have worked for 20 years with 2 of really the most talented women in publishing behind me. And that's Victoria Hobbs, my agent, and my editor, Mary Ann Harrington. And they have, just with their encouragement and their inspiration, has meant so much to me, and still does. I can't imagine writing a book without them. I also need to thank my amazing publicist, Georgina Moore, who managed to switch back in March when the book was coming out from a book tour to a kind of Zoom fest almost overnight in a magical way. I need to thank the double act of Yeti and Callie, who made, I think, the most beautiful book cover that I've certainly ever seen in my life. So I need to have a huge thank you also to my American editor, Jordan Pavlin of Knopf in America, and everyone at Tinder Press and AM Heath, and my friend Ruth Metzstein, who always reads my final drafts. I also need to give a very special thank you to my English teacher from school, Mr. Ewan Henderson at North Berwick High School, who first told me about the existence of Hamlet Shakespeare. And I think without the foundation stone of his teaching in English literature, I don't think I would have written any books, certainly not this one. Thank you also to my husband, Will, who read many multiple drafts and listened to me talk probably endlessly about Elizabethan society. And he also drove me from Edinburgh to Stratford-upon-Avon and back, after I'd broken my sacrum and I was in too much pain to take the wheel. Lastly, I want to say thank you to my beloved three beloved children who give me joy and inspiration and a lot of laughter every day. I love you. Thank you all so much.
That's so lovely, Maggie. Can you talk a little bit about the significance of prizes to writers, in particular this prize, which was founded on the principle of celebrating and honouring women's voices?
Yes, I mean, it's funny. I think back to 1996, and I have a really clear memory of reading that winner that year, which was Helen Dunwell's A Spell in Winter. And, at that time, I was actually working on the books desk. I was a secretary on a books desk then. And, it's really odd to remember now that actually Helen Dunwell was not given the review space and the coverage of her male counterparts. It seems extraordinary now when you think, it would be unbelievable for someone like Hilary Mantel or Bernardine Evaristo not to get the coverage of the male counterparts now. So, the Women's Prize in particular has worked and campaigned so hard, and they've achieved so much because, but there's still work to do. But prizes for me, I think, are for readers, for audiences. They are, for me, they fulfill a really important purpose of expanding our choices and suggesting books to us that we wouldn't necessarily have picked up in a bookshop or a library. And it's sort of airing new possibilities for us all.
That's really interesting to you say that. And I think as a judging panel, we had a really, really good year. We had an incredibly tough time. We had books from all over the world that we read and loved, and it was narrowing it down was incredibly difficult. But there were so many things about Hamlet that we just absolutely loved. And I think everyone had a very strong emotional connection to the book. But there was also so much technically that you could admire about it, and in its structure and the characterization. And there were some flourishes. There's one particular passage in the middle of the book where you talk about how the plague traveled, the Black Death traveled from Alexandria through all these various means, monkeys and cabin boys and all sorts of things, to rural England. And that was an extraordinary thing to read on its own. It was doubly extraordinary to reread it as I did in lockdown. And I was just wondering for you, how did it feel that something you'd created in one context then came to have this completely sort of new significance when the book was actually published in March?
It was very strange. I mean, certainly I never saw it coming. I mean, none of us did, and obviously when I wrote that chapter, when it was a year or 2 years ago, whatever, it was just an act of research. I remember sitting in my, nice ergonomic chair in my centrally heated house thinking, I wonder what it feels like to know that there is this horrible fatal disease, that's resistant to any powers of healing coming towards you, and what would it be like to find it in your house? But the strange thing is, the maps that I was looking at of Elizabethan trade routes and the arrows that the plague took as it swept through Europe look eerily similar to the ones that we were all looking at in February and March. So it is strange, but I think, usually when you finish a book, when you put the final full stop, your relationship with it is closed and it's sort of set in stone in some ways. But with this book, actually, oddly, I think with Hamlet, in the last 6 months, my relationship with it has altered, because I feel closer to the characters, actually. I feel closer to the experience of that the Elizabethans must have undergone, because they were constantly terrified of this disease, among many others, unfortunately. They were constantly aware and on the alert for the signals, and they would have been in what we would now call lockdown, repeatedly throughout their lives.
And I mean, you create that world so vividly, as we can sort of feel the textures and hear the sounds of this Elizabethan world, and you do it in a way that's beautiful, in that you create it privately and publicly. There are these private spaces and these public spaces. And it's so vivid to me, and the characters were so vivid. I was wondering if you would be tempted to return to that period at all, or whether you're done with the Elizabethans now.
I don't know. I mean, I would never say never.
Yeah.
Who knows? But I think, it took me a while to say goodbye to them, I think, in my own mind. Usually when I finish a book, I remove everything from the pinboard, that I've been working on, plans and photographs, and within a month or two, and I stick it all in the basement. But with Hamlet, actually, it took me longer. It took me almost a year to take it all down. So I still feel a strong connection to them all.
And are there plans and pinboards up at the moment?
There are. Well, there's a children's book coming out at the end of the year. So it's the first time I've ever collaborated with an artist. So I've with a visual artist, Daniela Terrazzini, who's been doing, so my lockdown was kind of animated by these beautiful watercolors arriving in my inbox from her. So that really cheered up the monotony.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. I'm going to now go to questions from the audience, which strangely I'm going to have to do on my phone. Sorry for this, but this is the new world. Hopefully I am getting some questions.
I don't think Paula's just checking her messages. Maybe she is.
And actually I don't have questions from them. So you could perhaps, yes, I do, sorry. So this is from Roxanne Noor, and she says, Agnes is so much more than William Shakespeare's wife in this book. In fact, Shakespeare is not even named. It's Agnes who guides us through. Why did you decide to center the story on her, and how do you feel about her now?
Well, I think, when I originally conceived the book, I thought it was going to be about fathers and sons and the search for ghosts, as of course the play Hamlet is. But actually I got sort of slightly sidetracked in a sense when I was doing my research about how badly the woman we know as Anne Hathaway, or Mrs. Shakespeare, how badly she's been treated by history and by academia and by scholarship. We are told this narrative constantly through all sorts of different types of writing and screenplays and other novelists, that she was this strumpet, she was this older peasant who lured this genius boy into marriage. And I feel that it was so unfair. I felt really outraged on her behalf, and I wanted to give her a voice of her own. The impetus behind the book was always that I wanted this boy Hamlet, who I think has contributed this hugely significant amount to English literature. Without him, I don't think we'd have Hamlet, and I don't think we'd have Twelfth Night without his death. But also I became really outraged on her behalf, and I wanted to present readers with a new version of her, to say perhaps they did love each other, perhaps their marriage was one a partnership, perhaps she was illiterate, but that doesn't mean she was stupid. Maybe she had an artistry and an intelligence all of her own. And
you did write such an amazing love story between them. I'm going to ask another one here. It's from Simon Marshall, and who says, you spoke on Monday night about a book taking on its own momentum, that the book will often assume the shape it needs to as you're writing. How do you learn to trust your instincts as a writer, to know when to follow the plot or to lead on the structure yourself?
Well, I think probably what I said on Monday night made it sound really neat and effortless, as if I just sit there and the book assumes its form, which isn't, as you all know, Paula, isn't quite how it happened. I think there's quite a lot of in between, sort of having one plan and then diverging from it and finding another. There's an awful lot of agonizing and hair pulling, and but I think then there comes a point where you have to trust the book will find its shape. And I think sometimes you have to allow yourself those, just when I decided I wanted to, follow Agnes's story, I think you have to trust the book sometimes. You have to trust your manuscript.
Yeah. Sorry, Nicole Lee asks, is there a book by a woman you most often buy or recommend to friends?
Oh, that's a really hard one. So many. I think I'd need about an hour to answer
I've already
that.
bought this for like 3 people.
Thanks, Paula. I think the one I return to again and again would probably be Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's the book I read. I probably reread it about once every 2 or 3 years, always without fail. So I think if I had to choose one, it would be My Desert Island. That's the one I would say from the waves.
Oh, really? Okay, that's brilliant. Suhat asks, the twins dimension was interesting in Hamlet and echoes the plays. How difficult was it to create that feeling of closeness between twins?
Not, I mean, I'm not a twin actually. My father is a twin, and there are twins in my family. But so I did sort of observe it, and I was just trying to imagine this closeness. But also, it's not really that difficult. You just read a bit of Shakespeare, actually. I mean, you just, you know, you look at Twelfth Night and you see these twins who are separated, and they both think the other one is dead, and you can feel it so strongly. One of the most moving moments, actually, for me when I was writing the book was I saw a document which suggested that the opening night of Twelfth Night, which of course was written a year or so after Hamlet, they believe Hamlet, was on the twins' birthday. So Shakespeare, who was obviously, you know, one of the leading members of his company, would have chosen that for the opening night of the Globe.
Oh wow, that's amazing. I think we probably have time for maybe one more question. I'm sorry, we are running. So Ali Platt asks, would you consider making Hamlet into a theatrical play? Good idea.
Well, I don't think I would, because I'd be absolutely useless at that. But no, I wouldn't be aware. The film rights have been sold, but I, you know, there's a long journey between film rights being sold and filming rights, so I don't know if that will happen at some point. But no, I think it would be very interesting to see it on stage, because then you'd have a play within a play, like Hamlet itself, I guess. But no, I'd be open to that. I'm not sure I'm the person for the job.
Yeah. Have you fantasy cast the movie though?
I don't know. It'd be tricky. I have a friend, a friend of my son, a teenage girl, who said that she wants Timothy Chalamet to play. So
yeah.
I'm sure he's
You
not
can't
busy.
go wrong with
I'm sure he's
Timothy.
not in demand at all.
Okay, and Gwen, I think this will probably be our final question, the good one to end on. If you could be remembered for only one of your books, which one would you choose?
Oh, that's hard. To choose, I don't know. I don't know is the answer. That's not a very good answer. I want any of them.
Maybe it's one that's yet to come.
Whichever one her favourite is, I guess.
Thank you so much, Maggie, and congratulations again.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. And